This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. Yep. People who do really good stuff have flaws. There is this sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. And that's enough. You know, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change. You know, if all you're doing is casting stones, you know, you're probably not going to get that far.
Ideological purity and never compromising. Former President Barack Obama warning that some far-left Democrats may not be doing themselves any favors by constantly trying to be woke. For more on President Obama's assessment of the party, I'm joined by one of his senior advisors in the White House, Valerie Jarrett. She's also author of the book, Finding My Voice, My Journey to the West Wing and the Path Forward. Ms. Jarrett, thank you for being with us. And I was, as some of the old ladies in church when I was going to say, overjoyed when I heard the president say that, because isn't it a dangerous pattern and even slightly arrogant when some on the left are giving purity tests and not moving forward and not trying to do things in a way that will benefit Americans the way we claim we want to see it benefited?
I think that's absolutely right. Good evening, Reverend Sharpton. I'm here in Chicago on my way to the Urban League dinner, and I think it's fitting because, look, there's no substitute, as you know, for hard work. We have to roll up our sleeves, and we can't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And perfect, of course, is our idea, what we think is best. But it is a big, complicated country out there, and we need to make change, and we want to push as hard as we can. But we should do better. We should be a force for good. And we shouldn't, this I gotcha, it just gets in the way of real sustained effort over time. And so I think he was really calling on us to say, let's roll up our sleeves, let's do the hard work, let's listen to one another, let's recognize that many times we're all in it for the right reasons, and let's push forward. And let's not be so busy snapping about the negative when we should be focusing on what we have in common and how to push ourselves, push all of ourselves to do better. And I know you know that from your long time in the civil rights movement. And tonight I'm going to be getting the Bill Berry Award from the Urban League. And he was an icon in Chicago and really symbolic of the hard work and how we all have to just concentrate on that incremental progress and stop thinking it's my way or the highway.
No, Bill Berry was an icon nationally who served in Chicago, and no one deserves that award more than you that comes in that tradition. But let me say, I think a lot of people forget that Barack Obama started as a community organizer, so he knows the difference between just heckling and just being anti and getting something done. He built from community organizer all the way to the Senate onto the White House, and he did it sometime being questioned by those that claim to be the real progressives, but he got more progressive things done. No one, I think, could have made that statement that had more gravitas and weight and could not be questioned like this former president.
I think that's right. Absolutely. He knows what it takes to knock on doors, have the doors slammed in your face, knock on doors again, and to listen to people on all sides. And it doesn't mean that you're not strong and of a great conviction, but you recognize that in this big, messy, complicated country, sometimes we have to compromise. And through that compromise, we make progress. And that's the key. You hold the baton, you run with it as fast as you can. It doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for everything and hold people accountable, but it also means that it's more than just the use of social media to retaliate. Let's use it as an instrument of good, not a weapon. And we've seen it being weaponized far too much.
And we're not talking about compromising your principles. We're talking about compromising how you make those principles come into an actualization. Well, one of the things that many of us feel is that helped to defeat the Democrats in 2016. Do you have that fear and think that that's what President Obama is concerned about, getting ahead of that early so we don't see a repeat of that in 2020?
Well, he has talked about the circular firing squad, and I think what he has encouraged the candidates to do, and certainly I know many of us have who have spoken with them, is let's keep focused on the prize, and the prize is a general election. Don't beat each other up so much during the primary that whoever emerges as a nominee goes in a weakened state. We know every time we are critical of one another, that's going to be used in a commercial by the Republicans. Now, that is not to say don't have honest and heated debates about policy. That's perfectly legitimate. But let's not strip each other down, because ultimately the party's going to have to pull together and move forward in the general election.
As we see many of the things that President Obama and you as the senior advisor in the White House fought to get through are now in jeopardy, and in some cases, as the federal judge appointees that I just talked about on this show, setting us back that would be longer in terms of its impact than President Trump or whoever follows him will be in office. Is it not a sense of urgency on President Obama and you and others to say, wait a minute, we've got to secure where we've already, the road we've traveled, and be very careful going forward, because we could lose more than we have gained if we end up with a lot of infighting among the so-called woke crowd?
Well, exactly. And Reverend Sharpton, I want to thank you for putting a spotlight on judges. I mean, it is so important that we have competent judges, fair judges, judges with judicial temperament. And what we have seen is packing the courts with judges that don't meet any of those criteria. And it shows you that elections do have consequences in so many ways that affect our day-to-day life. And so the stakes couldn't be higher. And I should mention that this coming week, Mrs. Obama launched When We All Vote, which is an initiative to encourage everybody to vote. We will have some news coming out in the days ahead. But what we need to see is every American care about not just who's running for president, but every single office, and get involved and vote. And When We All Vote is nonpartisan, because we were troubled that in the last election, 43% of eligible voters didn't vote. And disproportionately young people didn't vote. Those who have the most to lose from the decisions that are made by people in office are disengaged. And so what I think that we've seen over the last 3 years is a level of activism, which is encouraging to me. And we need to make sure that that is positive activism, trying to focus on what we have in common to move our country forward and show particularly the young people who are watching that they can have a profound positive impact on our country if they get involved. So stop tweeting at each other, start talking with one another, communicating, and trying to rally us together for those core democratic principles that have been a fundamental pillar of our country forever. And I'm not saying Democratic Party, I'm saying the principles of a democracy, the rule of law, culture, social norms, all of which have been blown up right now.
Absolutely. I always say if you're going to be woke, that means wake up. But if you wake up, you need to get up and go to work. Don't lay in the bed.
Go
woke.
to work.
Go to work.
Go to work.
Valerie Jarrett, winner of the Bill Berry Award of the Chicago Urban League tonight. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton.
Up next, tomorrow marks 1 year until Election Day 2020. We'll take a look at the current state of the Democratic race and how things might pan out in the near future. You're watching Politics Nation.